Remember that brief scene in Fast Times at Ridgemont High where Phoebe Cates came out of the pool wearing a bright red bikini? Even though it was only on screen for a few seconds, it had a lasting impression on viewers for decades, leaving its mark on pop culture history. Many were shocked by Phoebe's choice at the height of her career when Hollywood appeared to be firmly within her reach. She moved away from the spotlight, opting to marry a man 16 years her senior. What actually prompted that decision, then? And who was the individual responsible for it? On July 16, 1963, Phoebe Cates was born in New York City. I grew up in a household that valued creativity and music as a way of life rather than just a hobby. Her mother, Lily Cates, was an actress with a soft, elegant demeanor, while her father, Joseph Cates, was a well-known Broadway producer and a trailblazer in American television. Phoebe was surrounded by art from the start and appeared destined for the theater or cinema, but her initial steps led her in a different direction. When she started modeling as a youngster, she soon became well-known in glossy magazines and was praised for her gentle, alluring beauty. However, something didn't feel right underneath the glossy pictures. From the outside, what appeared to be beauty gradually transformed into routine, even emptiness. Later on, Phoebe acknowledged that modeling had become meaningless. It started to focus more on duty and less on expression. She turned to dance in search of something more satisfying, pursuing a passion that seemed genuinely her own. Her resolve remained unwavering in the face of her family's worries. Before life once more had other ideas, receiving a scholarship to the School of American Ballet appeared to be fate. Phoebe Cates' life took an unexpected turn when she was just 14 years old. She had to give up ballet, the goal she had dedicated herself to for years, after a severe accident left her with a permanent knee disability. At such a young age, what had once seemed assured abruptly vanished, leaving behind both bodily suffering and a profound emotional emptiness. After that, Phoebe went through a period of introspection as she looked for a new route to take the place of the one she had lost. She gradually started to see acting as a potential path ahead because she had a solid creative basis and discipline from her dancing training. At the time, it was not unusual to go from dance to film and felt like a promising next step given her natural charisma. Her casting in Paradise after an audition in New York City gave her that chance. It seemed to be the start of something great, but it also presented difficulties she hadn't fully expected. She encountered situations that were overpowering and complicated because she was still very young and inexperienced. Despite her doubts, she decided to keep going with the help of her father, who was well-versed in the field. Paradise, which was shot in Israel in 1981, had a romantic, action-packed plot that was evocative of the Blue Lagoon. Phoebe assumed the major part and even made a musical contribution by producing an album of the same name and performing the theme song, demonstrating her early desire to pursue a variety of creative avenues. Behind the film's stunning visuals, though, were challenges that a young actress had to deal with. She was forced to step outside of her comfort zone by the event and had a profound effect. Phoebe subsequently talked about how perplexing it was to go from the regimented world of modeling to the far more difficult and emotionally complex world of acting in an interview from 1982. Phoebe Cates had always been in charge of the fashion industry. In front of the camera, every attitude and position is meticulously crafted. However, acting required a completely other kind of music. She found it quite challenging to completely forget about the lens and immerse herself in the feelings of a character. Due to inexperience and lack of preparation, that shift gradually resulted in an increasing sensation of unease, as though control was eroding. She was taken aback and lost faith in the production when she later learned that some scenes had been changed without her knowledge. In retrospect, Phoebe freely acknowledged that was a regrettable experience that taught her valuable lessons. At a pivotal moment in her career, she declared that she would never take on a project like that again. Willie Ames, her co-star in music, claims that the film's aftermath had a significant impact on her. Phoebe distanced herself from the memories associated with that period by withdrawing and even avoiding promotional appearances. Nevertheless, Paradise unquestionably exposed her to a larger audience in spite of the emotional toll. More significantly, demonstrated something more profound: her capacity to face challenging situations, draw lessons from them, and proceed with increased awareness. Stronger decisions, increased self-assurance, and a more distinct sense of who she wanted to be marked the beginning of a new chapter. Phoebe took on a role at the end of 1982 that would alter everything. Fast Times at Ridgemont High swiftly rose to prominence as a cultural sensation, resonating across America with its portrayal of youth, relationships, and self-discovery. Phoebe stood out as Linda Barrett in that colorful environment. She was self-assured, seductive, and realistically grounded. This harmony, together with her effortless on-screen persona, was what made a lasting impression. Then she emerged from the pool in that now iconic red bikini, a moment that viewers would never forget. What was on screen for just a few seconds grew into something much more, with becoming a hallmark of 1980s cinema. Beyond its outward impact, however, Phoebe's journey, which subtly shaped the performance from within, was what really gave the moment its strength. Phoebe Cates subsequently disclosed that this was one of the few productions when she truly felt at ease, pleased, fun, and fully herself in front of the camera, in stark contrast to the pressures she had previously experienced. She was able to offer a natural emotional dimension to her performance that went beyond appearances and made her presence seem effortlessly real because of this sense of freedom. Something had changed by 1983. Phoebe was no longer merely an up-and-coming actor. Audiences were unable to adequately describe the subtle beauty and sense of quiet mystery that pervaded her features. She did much more than just contribute charm to the screen when she co-starred with Matthew Modine and Betsy Russell in the teen comedy Private School. Looking back now, particularly from the perspective of older audiences, Phoebe appeared to symbolize a different age of Hollywood, one in which appeal existed in subtle moments. A glance, a gesture, the way a character moved with an almost inexplicable naturalness, rather than being forced or overblown. She struck out with a demeanor that was both innocent and subtly mischievous, even in a movie that leaned toward lighthearted, fun, and occasionally daring writing for its time. However, Phoebe wasn't satisfied with staying in one lane. She sang songs like Just One Touch and How Do I Let You Know from the movie's soundtrack, suggesting a larger goal to become a more adaptable performer in a more cutthroat field. Seeing a well-known on-screen character transition into song had a special enchantment for viewers in the 1980s. It was more than amusement. It was an indication that someone was going above and above. Beneath it all, though, was a question. What if she continued to be solely a representation of beauty in adolescent movies? Her next move was all the more intriguing because of that question. With the miniseries Lace, which adapted from Shirley Conran's book, Phoebe had an unexpected television debut in 1984. This choice was not just audacious, but also a calculated risk that suggested a deeper plan behind her developing career at a time when television was frequently viewed as a step down for up-and-coming film stars. Nevertheless, this audacious choice exposed a side of Phoebe Cates that few had ever really seen before. One that was more profound, daring, and prepared to venture into emotionally challenging territory. She played Lily in Lace, a film star molded by suffering, bitterness, and long-kept secrets. Phoebe had to let go of her well-known persona and enter a far more turbulent inner realm in order to bring this character to life. Many were taken aback by her unorthodox strategy. She decided against reading the first book. That may seem risky, even foolish, to most actors. For Phoebe, however, it was deliberate. Her goal was to develop the character instinctively and without regard to expectations. Perhaps this very choice of was what gave her performance such unadulterated authenticity, demonstrating that sometimes the most potent art comes from defying rather than according to the rules. Then came the unforgettable question, which one of you is my mother? The music was more than just a part of the narrative. It reverberated well beyond it, and TV Guide later acknowledged it as one of the most unforgettable moments on television. It touched on themes of identity and hidden realities, and for many viewers, especially those who could relate to its emotional weight, it felt uncomfortably genuine rather than merely dramatic. Phoebe attained a degree of emotional profundity through Lily that contradicted everything viewers believed to be true about her. Beneath the beauty that used to characterize her, she was an artist prepared to take on challenging tasks in pursuit of something more. Shortly after, she joined Steven Spielberg's executive production of Gremlins, one of the most pivotal undertakings of her career. For viewers in the 1980s, this was more than simply a movie. It was a phenomenon that combined fantasy, horror, and comedy into something completely unique. Phoebe portrayed Kate Barringer in that universe, a figure who conveyed a calm, expressive presence rather than relying on loud moments or theatrical gestures. She started to transcend the image that had previously overwhelmed her with nuanced expressions and subdued performances, demonstrating that her strength resided not just in how she looked, but also in how she made listeners feel. Gremlins became the highest-grossing movie of her career, and its popularity propelled her to a new level of fame. She did, of course, make a comeback for Gremlins 2, the new batch, which appeared to follow the prescribed course of maintaining financial success. However, then an unforeseen event occurred. Phoebe made a different decision at a time when most performers would have worked even harder to become famous. She eventually moved away from the limelight of mainstream movies and towards something much more personal, the stage, rather than pursuing larger roles in Hollywood. It was not at all simple to choose the stage over the screen. Theater, particularly off-Broadway, did not provide the financial and celebrity benefits of Hollywood. Nevertheless, it provided Phoebe Cates with what she had been looking for all along: authenticity and an unvarnished, unadulterated relationship with the art of acting. She debuted off-Broadway in 1984 with The Nest of the Woodgrouse at the Joseph Papp Public Theater, a venue renowned for its depth and experimentation rather than its spectacle. This felt like a return to the essence of performance, where there were no cameras, no retakes, no editing, just the actor, the audience, and the reality of the moment. It was more than just a change in career. Later on, Phoebe revealed that she had never felt more liberated than she did while performing music on stage. That decision may appear perplexing to many. After all, Broadway's radiance isn't always on par with Hollywood's glitz.